You are listening to the Julie Parker Practice Success Podcast, where you discover management insights and strategies for your successful dental practice. There are also interviews with key people in the industry who have advice and services to help you and your team achieve great success. Welcome to this episode of the Julie Parker Practice Success Podcast. And I'm really delighted with our guest today. I'm always excited when we get somebody from another country speaking about the dental space, just to get a bit of a different perspective. But it also leaves me with the feeling that we're all generally, we're in the same market, we're in the same industry. So there are so many similarities. It is always worthwhile having these sort of conversations. So I would like to introduce Michael Dinsio of Next Level Consultants. Welcome, Michael.
Hey, thanks, Jolie, for having me on. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. And what part of the world are you in?
We are on the west coast of the United States, so up in the northeast, as we call it, or northwest, as we call it, the Pacific Northwest in Seattle, Washington.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah. Right now, this time of year, not so beautiful. It's just the raining and just no sun, and we're going into that season. But come summertime, man, there's no better place in the world.
Oh, that's nice. We've come into summer now for a few days, and we've got some really pretty days, and then interspersed with crazy rain as well. So
Of course.
They always say, whether in Melbourne, in Victoria, here in Australia, they always say you have 4 seasons in one day, and that's certainly the case on many days.
Yeah, that's about right.
So, Michael, I was doing a bit of research around you because I came across you through some of the podcasts. You've got your own podcast as well. And what I gleaned is that you are a consultant for dentists that want to own their own practice. And I love, there was a line that I heard you say somewhere, getting into ownership the right way. That's a fantastic line. I do love that. But your history came from banking and finance.
It did, yeah. So, longer than a decade now. I've been in the dental industry, and the start was giving folks loans, right? And so dentists would approach me, and that was my specialty with a fairly large lender here in the United States, and I just learned the business of dentistry through numbers, through tax returns, through production reports, and kind of fell in love with the industry and did that long enough. Was blessed to do well over $10 million of dental lending loans, real estate acquisitions, startups, you name it, and kind of came up with a formula in my mind, my head, of what buyers need to do before they get into ownership to set themselves up for success, and that's kind of what led me into consulting. So it was an interesting background, and saw a lot of successes, a few failures, of course. That's part of the banking business, and learned a lot from that. And it was just really interesting to see that. And so, that's what we focus on today, is helping doctors get into a business the right way. And startups are another big piece of what we do. So we're not really biased towards acquisition versus startup. It's right for different folks and for different reasons, and we can help them do either way.
Beautiful, because there are benefits and drawbacks to every scenario, including startups and acquisitions.
Mm-hmm,
I bought my own practice back in 2003. I had that for 10 years, and I acquired a business that had been going on for decades and even longer at another location in the city. It had come out to the suburbs. And David, the dentist that had sold it to me, he handed over this beautiful gift. And I didn't even realize at the time what a beautiful gift it was. Yeah. And I've certainly say, when we're talking about the benefits and drawbacks of one over the other, startups or an acquisition, to be able to start earning a consistent and known amount from day one, man, that reduced my stress down big time.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's always the cash flow discussion versus the vision discussion. Like, I have this vision for the practice that I want to own, and this is what it looks like, and these are the patients that I want, and these are the people that I would employ, and this is the technology that I would use. And then there's the, oh, but that doesn't come with any cash flow. And then the acquisition is, oh, this business is beautiful. The team might not be exactly who I would have, or yeah, I'm buying patients that maybe aren't the perfect fit or whatever, but it comes with cash flow. And so again, everybody, has different things that are important to them in their career and experience. And I think acquisition is probably the more popular one. But it's kind of cool seeing someone that pursues the startup and how they just like are fearless, and they just jump right in with 2 feet and make it happen. So it's funny though, the ones that aren't super clear with their vision and exactly what they want and go down the startup path, they tend to struggle a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Or vice versa, if you're buying a practice and you change too much right out of the gate because you're so fixated on your way, they can struggle as well too. So it's interesting because the pros and cons really should complement your strengths and weaknesses, and it really should affect your strategy going into ownership, because you probably won't fail, but you could struggle a little bit if you're too aggressive in one way or the other.
Yeah, that's so true. And you're really kind of bringing my mind to, if a dentist is out there, or non-dentist, I was the first non-dentist to buy a practice in Australia. I'd had a history of dental assisting, reception, all the rest of it. So if anyone is out there, and we've got a lot of hygienists now owning dental practices as well, one of the decisions to make, or one of the areas to uncover when you're deciding, should I do a startup or should I acquire an ongoing practice, is where is your mindset? Where's your level of fear? How much can you put in just faith in yourself and your strong abilities, and a big fingers crossed, and just hope that if I build it, they will come.
Yeah.
Because if you're not good at having faith in yourself and your own abilities and the universe from that perspective, and your default place is just to stress out and fret and worry and lose sleep, then maybe acquiring a practice might be a better way, even though everything else is going towards the startup.
150%. I couldn't agree more. Oftentimes I'm helping startups, and who am I to tell someone they can or cannot do, right? But absolutely, I'll be helping clients, and I'll just be wondering, like, gosh, like, you're really like having a hard time making this very simple decision, and we've got 100 decisions ahead of us that, frankly, should be stressing you out versus a $12 decision. You know what I mean? And so I do question, but us as coaches, we make people their better self, and I think those people that have those weaknesses, they definitely have a lot of growth, and they'll be fine. It's just, again, that you either have that gift naturally, or you're forced into it with a lot of stress and worry. Yeah. But it is pretty cool seeing clients grow like that, whether or not they were ready for it or not.
Because it is a self-awareness journey, isn't it? I mean, you think about, I reflect back to my time, and the self-awareness journey in your abilities as a leader, discovering what it means to be an effective leader, because you make mistakes and you're trying to move away from the mistakes, and you're trying to aspire to be something better. How you manage a team, your awareness around how to appeal to patients and continue creating an environment for patients that they want to return, that self-awareness about how to manage stress. Because you're right, even though at the start, out from the gates, they may not seem to manage it very well, over time they start to recognize, gosh, I have to shift my mindset around this, because I'm going to worry myself into an early grave, and they do start to evolve.
100%. Yeah, going into ownership, just being an owner is difficult. I mean, it's not for the faint-hearted. You owned, my partner is a hygienist, and she owned a practice here in the States. And in the States, it's challenging. I assume it's also challenging for non-dentists in Australia, but I don't know. In the States, I think there's only maybe 2 states that you're allowed to do that. And she lives in one of them, which is Arizona. And, as a consultant, just like you, she thought it would be fine. And And it was fine. It was great. But her leadership abilities and skills definitely got pushed even with all she knew. So, I mean, this is someone that coaches people for a living and knows all the right answers. But when you're in that position, when you're making those decisions, I really do believe in the idea of this, like, we're big Tony Robbins fans, the ultimate success formula, and it's really just coming up with a goal, putting a plan together, evaluating that plan, making a massive effort towards that plan, and then pivoting if you need to, or continuing down the right path, and just over and over and over learning from those successes and failures, more importantly, like you said, is huge. And I think the folks that are good at determining what failure looks like and embraces that failure, like kind of like you were alluding to, and pivots quickly and identifies it quickly and pivots quickly, I think those are the folks that will accomplish more quicker. Folks that sit in that failure and think something's going to change, the definition of insanity, keep doing the same thing over and over and expect something different, it's not going to work. So I really do feel like ownership is about going towards failure and pivoting and making adjustments and then going hard at it again.
Yeah, and embracing that not all of your decisions are going to work out well. Not all of your actions are going to work out with tremendous outcomes. And to embrace that side of it, this is part of being human. There's no sure thing. This is why business ownership is difficult and why not everyone does it. And also to recognize the value of progress. And being a Tony Robbins fan, you would have heard him many times say progress equals happiness. And so on our striving toward that large, big goal, that ultimate success, there's going to be a whole journey prior to that, which may actually shift the goal that we've got.
That's so true. You might not want the goal. That's exactly right. Yeah.
And there's actually a beautiful story, and listeners would have heard me say this a couple of times, but I'm a big fan of repetition as well. That's what makes things stick in our brains. There was, and again, this is coming from a huge Tony Robbins fan myself, and I'd heard him say a few times that we overestimate what we can get done in 1 year and underestimate what we can get done in 10 years. And I used to always think, that's interesting, because I have conversations with, other entrepreneurs and business owners, and everyone's like, in 10 years' time, I'm going to be freaking awesome. I'm going to be making millions of dollars. I'm going to be living in a mansion. All my friends will be tremendous. And so I have always thought, gosh, we aspire to be so much in 10 years. What do you mean we're underestimating what we can get done in 10 years? So I was doing some research about it so I could do a blog on it and get a bit more awareness on myself about it.
Send me that blog, because this is interesting.
I will.
Yeah.
And I came across an article written by somebody who I should have written down the name of them to give them credit for it. And he was speaking about an online game called Osmos. And in this game, Osmos, you are a particle, like a cell of some kind, and you are floating around a medium with a whole bunch of other particles.
Okay.
And some of the particles are smaller than you and some of the particles are larger than you. And the point of the game is to stay alive. If you come across a particle that is smaller than you, you can overcome it, gobble it up, and you become just a little bit bigger. But if you come across a particle that's larger than you, then it gobbles you up and that's your game over. And so what you find, you're going around seeking these smaller particles, in essence, smaller challenges that you can overcome. You have got the capacity to overcome. You overcome it, you get that little bit bigger, little bit bigger, little bit bigger. And then eventually you'll come across those larger particles that you would avoid previously because it would be the end of your game. And now you find you are bigger than them and you can overcome them and remain alive and bigger again to keep going. And this is what progress is like. And this is why we do underestimate what we can achieve in 10 years' time, because our whole identity is going to be something that we cannot even visualize understand right now, because 10 years down the track, if we do, as you say, fail forward, and take on the challenges, recognizing, failure is going to be part of it, but there's going to be progress. And with progress, you get bigger and bigger and capable of so much more. You have no idea who you're going to be in 10 years' time.
I love that game. I thought you were going to take that in a different direction, but the outcome was great in that story. I was thinking that with that game, as you described it, you did a great job describing it, is that you would be attracted more towards the smaller side of the board. And so you go after smaller goals. And I was thinking that idea is that you're not shooting for bigger goals and you should go towards the bigger side. But I love the idea of mastering smaller things over and over and getting better with that process, so that you can overcome the bigger ones. That's cool too. So very, very awesome. I tell my clients all the time, start getting comfortable, because we work with dentists. Dentists are very, God love you all. We love you. But your behaviors are very similar across most, not all. And they obviously are really good at detail and are extreme perfectionists, and oftentimes can be type A, where they're checking their things off the list, right? And they like controlled environments, right? And so that's the world we need them to thrive in, right? Because they're clinicians and they're wicked smart in those departments, and I want someone like that in my mouth, right? But you can't control everything with going into ownership. And so I always say, be comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's probably one of the things that I say all the time. Start getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. Don't freak out when you're uncomfortable. Accept that feeling. Understand what that feeling's doing to you. Come up with a success formula, as we called it in the beginning, for the challenge that's and know that you're going to get through it. Just have the confidence that that's going to get worked through, and that you won't always be uncomfortable with this. But ownership is very uncomfortable at first. And I feel like they, we're always mastering it. Even myself as a business owner, and probably you too, Julie. Like there's new challenges every single year. It's just different. It's different, and it's always changing and constantly moving, and you're always going to be uncomfortable. It's just a different uncomfortable now. So
you're absolutely right. That's right. Life doesn't come for free for anybody. We all have to have our challenges. It's just part of the order of the universe, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes. Exactly right.
So getting the mindset is an important thing. And another thing that just popped into my mind before was, you talking about becoming comfortable with the uncomfortable is so very important, because one of the uncomfortable things about being a new business owner is, what if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? Mm-hmm. And what if I have to tell everybody around me and they all get to know that I failed and wasn't good enough? And that can force us into more stress, obviously, than we want, but that can shift us into a different level of decision-making that is no longer helpful for our future.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, exactly. No, the abundant mentality is something that you have to embrace. I think if you're projecting failure, you're not being your best self. And the reality is, if you want ownership, there's usually a reason for it. I hope it's not just money. Of course, it provides you the ability to make great money, but if you chase money, you're not going to be as successful, in my opinion. I think you chase your passion and you do it for the right reasons. And we're going all over the place with leadership and stuff, but Simon Sinek is another big one that everybody follows, and you got to chase the why behind what you do, and otherwise you're just kind of existing with everybody else, just being average. So yeah, failure is absolutely something that comes up with me on a daily basis with new folks that are looking to get into ownership. And I tend to rationalize logic with logic because of our clients, our
Yeah.
shared clients with dentists. They definitely can lean more towards data and analytics and statistics. And I will tell you, as a banker, the default rates were incredibly low, incredibly low. In fact, I can only think of a few industries that were better. One of them was a mortician, for example. Everybody dies. uh, everybody dies. A mortician was better, but dentist was up there. And that being said, that's a dangerous statistic. I think fear is a good driver. I don't think it needs to control you, but if you're too confident, it's an issue as well. But there's a difference between bank defaults and what I would consider success. Because although the default rates are incredibly low, that doesn't mean that dentists are all of them are thriving and making great money. Just because they're paying their loan doesn't mean they're successful. It just means that they're paying their bill. They might be breaking even and totally not happy and not, comfortable. So I think the where the men become boys, or whatever saying you want to say, is somewhere in between, the not defaulting and paying your bills and being happy and successful, whatever that means. And I think you have to define that and go for that. But if the baseline is not defaulting, you don't have to call your friends and tell anybody you failed. So if that's out of the way, if the baseline's 99% of the time you're not going to default, right? If that's the statistic, that throws that fear out. Now you got to figure out how to be the success that you want to be.
Yeah, and I found myself thinking about someone's human health, physical health. That if failure with physical health means I'm so unhealthy that my body just dies, my organs give out and I die.
Yeah,
That's pretty extreme, isn't it?
Yes,
but
exactly.
do I want to have a level of health where I'm just not dying?
Yeah, exactly. That's same parity. Yes. Yeah, not dying and healthier. Yeah, that's right.
Two wildly different things, a very broad scale there.
Exactly.
So talking about vision, and I do love this because I know that when I first owned my business, and when we have these discussions with new business owners and existing business owners that have never really gone down this path, they go, oh, the vision and the culture, airy-fairy stuff, values, who cares? We just got to get in there and do work. But the longer I am in this industry, the more practices I'm involved in, and for my own business itself as well, I am more and more on board this train where the vision, it changes over time, because we were talking before about the Osmos game. It can so be flexible in that and allow that to grow and evolve in its natural course. But the vision ends up determining so much. And so if we talk about a startup, for example, and there's practices out there that want to be in existence and the potential owners are thinking, I'm not there yet. I'm not at a point to identify my vision. I just need to open doors and get patients through the door. That's my vision at the moment. But what's been your experience around how quickly they should get to that overarching drive and purpose of what they're doing?
Yeah, that's a huge miss, in my opinion. Now, plenty of people go about it with what you just described, was just getting open and figuring out kind of what your plan is and what your vision is after. I think that's a big miss. Will you be fine? Sure. But those that are crystal clear about the vision that they have for the next year or two are gonna be more likely to hit their success, in my opinion. And this isn't the mission statement. I think people get really confused about mission statement versus vision. Vision is where you want to be in the future, short term and long term, both. And I think getting granular in that. But I always imagine this. Okay, so I ask my clients all the time. And Australia's probably got a different list, so pardon me for my United States story here, but we've got the Fortune 500 list, and at the top of the list, there's always a handful of really big companies that we all know worldwide, Walmart, Exxon, big companies. And I always say, like, which company does better, Walmart or Nordstrom? Okay. And to me, it's so obvious. Walmart does better from a gross revenues and profitability, but the sexier one is Nordstrom, right? But those are two different businesses. And you got Target, again, sorry for keeping it United States, but you got Target in the middle of that, right? And they're all different businesses, and there's nothing wrong with all three of those businesses. It's great. They all go after a different market, and ironically, Walmart does the best out of all of those scenarios. The clearer you are about what you're trying to achieve, the more success you will be. If you want to be again, Medicaid is something that we have. I don't know if that's something that you guys are doing, but Medicaid is government and super low fees, but high volume, and scheduling is different. Employee models different. Marketing's different. All of that's different. And that's all that there's a great business model for that. People need to be served in that segment. People still have money to spend in that segment. You just need a business model around it and a vision for that. The other direction is the Nordstrom model is maybe only 2 operatories and really $60,000 cases, and doing all fixed and beautiful before and after photos, and maybe there's you're getting a massage at the same time. I mean, seriously, that all matters. And if you're going after a startup and you don't know which one you're going to be, there's a waterfall of decision making that you need to make from the very beginning, like renting space. How much space do you need? Well, if I'm going after the Walmart vision, quote unquote, I'm going to need more space. If I'm going after the Nordstrom, I don't need as much space. So it matters. Everything matters in every decision that you make, and it all starts with kind of vision and business planning, and what are you trying to accomplish at the end of this?
So absolutely.
Sorry, I could go on forever about that.
No, it's really fantastic, and you keep reminding me of the conversation I recently heard on Angus Pry's podcast, and we were just speaking about Angus ourselves before we started recording, and he had American woman on talking about pricing, how to determine your pricing of your stuff. Wildly interesting episode for anyone out there that wants to listen to it. I'll pop the link in the show notes for it. And one of the things that she was talking about, certainly one of the things that you and I would always be talking about with our clients is being very aware. When you recognize what your vision is, that's what then determines what niche patient market you are appealing to. You see everyone, you see all the toothaches and the families and everyone, but this is my niche market that I'm doing promotions to, that I want to attract into the practice. And that niche market will have expectations and desire and experience in your practice of a certain type. Mm-hmm. And that's what you're talking about. You have to create the environment for these people that they're attracted into your practice, and then they want to stay, and then they want to tell other like-minded people about you. Mm-hmm. And this episode that I'm talking about the pricing, she was giving the example of Walmart. And if you just saw a price in Walmart, what are you doing? You're going in there. They've got these huge banners with big dollar signs, and they've got $24.95 or 99 cents, for example.
Yeah, 91 cents.
That's it. Yet if you went into Cartier for something like, she didn't use the company Cartier, I can't remember which one she used, but you went into this very elite store. For a start, you don't know what the prices are. You have to look hard for those prices. They're on a very tiny little docket.
You're looking, you're like digging in, and then the sales rep comes over, and you're like, I don't want to talk to you yet. I don't know if I can afford this.
and do those dockets have cents? They only have dollars. They don't have cents. And so it's just it's a lovely thing to get two extremes of the one scenario. So we really start to understand. I'm starting to get how many steps of the process get impacted when I actually have identified the vision and identified the specific patient base that I want to try to appeal to, and provide
totally. That's beautiful, and I do want to also touch on acquisition in that department too, because startup it's the obvious. Hey, this is what I want to achieve. This is the construction, the location, the marketing, the people I'm going to hire. I mean, you got to have crystal clear vision. But we were talking about how maybe if you weren't the strongest with your vision, you could go towards acquisition and be fine because you could kind of adopt somebody else's business model.
Yeah.
But if you did have really strong vision, and I said that was one of the pitfalls of an acquisition, if you had strong vision and my brain was going to, like, during the due diligence process when you're buying a practice, it's really easy for a guy like me, probably someone like you, Julie, who went through it, is go to the numbers, understand the cash flow, like understand big picture what this practice looks like, what procedures they're doing. Can you do it? If you can't, you're going to have to send it out. Is that revenue loss? I mean, there's 100 different things to really contrast, but not a lot of people spend time on the demographics, the patient base of what you're buying. And I think that can be a miss because I just looked at a practice the other day that had, like, I want to say it was 60 some percent were older than 60 years or more, 60%. So the other 40% was obviously younger than 60. And I was like, you do know that you're buying a really older practice, and, you're a baby doc. I mean, in a lot of ways, you graduated 2 years ago. I want you to know that the seller's old, you're super young. This is what your patient looks like. It's probably great dentistry, no doubt. They probably have money, no doubt. But you're going to have to really focus on bringing in new patients that match you. And, I think there's a lot to be said for the fit of an acquisition and really digging into the demographics and thinking through that. I just wanted to bring acquisition back into the play.
Yeah, and I'm pleased that you did. I agree with you. I can imagine that, because I've seen both scenarios, you would have seen both scenarios where you buy an ongoing concern and you are either so terrified of alienating any patient that you don't change anything. And next thing you know, it's 5 years down the track and you still haven't changed anything. You're not going towards your vision at all.
Uh-huh.
But then you've got the other end of the spectrum where they jump in, they're changing everything, staff members leave, patients start to leave, everything's different now. And so where do you find that happy medium?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we're fortunate enough to maintain a lot of our clients post-acquisition, and I have a team of other coaches that focus on the clinical and the front office while I kind of stay in the business and marketing side. And as a team, we've noticed that, after being on the front end, looking at the practice, trying to figure it out, try to get a transition plan that makes sense, doing all of those things, and then the acquisition happens and you're executing that plan, and maybe that plan wasn't 100% because you don't get to see everything. It's just, well, maybe this is happening, or when we buy this, we're going to have to look at that because I don't quite understand why they're doing this, But once you get into it, you're seeing some of those things. And so I love that you bring that up because you can't be afraid of making changes in an acquisition based on what you and I talked about in the beginning of this episode. You can't go in and just start disrupting. No, that's not a good idea. But equally important is if you need to make some changes that are foundational, maybe profitability is a mess, cutting cancer, a teammate that's just cancerous to the rest of the team. I mean, there are some things that are just, it's going to be a hard thing to do. It's like that game, the video game. You go after that little bead and take it over. You're going to have to experience this. And so you can't be afraid of change. You got to be sensitive to how much change. You have to weigh the importance of what you want. Is this something that you want, or is this something that's going to be good for the practice? And that's kind of your guide for in my mind, making the change. We always say, whenever you're making a decision, put it in this preference. Is this smart for the patient? Is this first decision-making point? Is this smart for the practice? Yeah. Is this smart for the team? And then is this smart for myself? And we kind of run through that patient, practice, team, self exercise. And overall, if it's better for the patient and the practice, it's an easy decision. But if it's a decision for myself only, or maybe one team member and not great for the patient or practice, you eliminate that. So to me, it's priority. And sometimes you need a Julie or you need a Michael to help you navigate if that's a want or a need, and how do you handle that if it's going to be a hard situation?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I often encourage when people are they're faced with a difficult decision. I often, usually it's around team members, but I think it works nicely here as well. I say you make the decision-making process super easy when you use the frame of parent-child. And that's not to diminish the employees at all, your team members at all. It's just recognizing who's in that position of authority and leadership and what you need to do to create an environment where everyone can actually be successful and heard, etc. And in this particular frame, I love that, is it good for the patient? Is it good for the business? Is it good for the team, for yourself as well? Because as a parent, you'd be making decisions that are not just solely good for you. What would your family end up looking like when you're the one going off on all these beautiful holidays? You're leaving everyone else behind. You get the lion's share of the food and the money and the and the television remote.
That's right. Oh, yeah. There's no debate in my house on that one. I just win that one.
That's fantastic. And so, if there are people out there that are looking at whether they're buying a startup or they're acquiring an existing practice, what kind of preparation do you feel like they need to go through, or how much time should they be giving themselves to do their research and preparation?
Yeah, man, that's a great question. I think there's a lot of preparation in going to buying a practice or doing a startup. Preparation before you decide if you get into ownership. I think your job as an associate is to just sit back, soak in everything that you're learning from your current situation. Maybe you're working for corporate or a mom and pop shop that's run an excellent business. You want to take in what they're doing great, and you want to make note of what they're not doing great, and just learn from that, specifically the team, like how they're managing the team, what's working, how does it make you feel when they communicate the certain ways that they do. But it's really just, to me, that's like golden. That's a golden opportunity while you're an associate to really learn from others. And it's interesting when I help people get into ownership and they've only worked for like one doctor for 5 years, just the one practice, and that's all they have. And it's a very narrow view, because we have the opportunity of working with lots of dentists all across the country, and that's our unique advantage. It's 60 at all times, and so we get to see best of all of it, and that's what makes us valuable. It's similar probably to your business. I guess the big picture is like just soak it up and try to learn and get as much as you can. But, podcasts like what we're doing today, I think once you start thinking startup, there's definitely some things that they can do. And once you start thinking about acquisitions, there's things that they can do. No doubt, reach out to me. I'm happy to give some resources on either direction. That could be a give for me. But I just think that like ownership, business, leadership books, I think all that matters. But what's amazing to me, Julie, is, I got my MBA, loved business, worked for corporate America in that banking world. None of that was really super sticky until I was in that ownership seat. I think your growth from ownership, from the day you take on the practice to however long, is just enormous. You could read books, you could listen to podcasts, but until you're in that seat, it's frankly, it's tough to prepare, which is why I believe in consulting. So
nice. Yeah.
It is self-serving, but
that's right. But it's a win-win situation, that's for sure as well. And I think that is it. There are so many resources out there now. When I was on my journey, it was because of NLP. I had my first exposure to NLP when I was in my early 30s, and somebody had given me an old cassette series, where you put the actual cassette tape into your bingo.
Yeah. Were you checking if I had gray hair when you were saying that? Because I do, and I understand what a cassette is.
And that, along with jumping all over all Tony Robbins books and things, I became very aware. I need to know how to manage a team. I need to know about marketing. I need to know about all the things.
Mm-hmm.
And for me to discover all the things, this is before internet was in every house, before computers were in every house. At our dental practices, we had computers, but we had no internet.
Mm-hmm.
And it was available, of course, but it wasn't part of our everyday as yet. And so the way I got my information was the local bookstore. You wouldn't go, there wasn't any Amazon or anything like that. You didn't just order these books in. Audio books weren't downloadable, so I had to go to a store a few suburbs away and see the titles that they had in audio book format on CD or in cassette tape, and buy those. What I found back then too, even though it was more difficult to get this kind of information, because it wasn't a flooded market yet, the only people that were writing the books, the only people that were creating these CDs and audio pieces were experts in their field. They had done all the learning, they'd done all the groundwork, they were brilliant human beings, and so I was learning from the best, I feel like. Now you look up business management or leadership and there's millions of books out there, and who do you know which one's you should be choosing from? So benefits and drawbacks for both scenarios, that's for sure.
It's
and
true.
I agree. I think
anybody with a microphone can do a podcast, right, Jolie?
That's right. That's exactly right. So I agree with you. The preparation side of it's more, listen to your own soul. What do you want to achieve? What are the benefits? And this is one of my husband is Charles Kovess, Australasia's passion provocateur. He's a wonderful motivational coach, and he does talk about the need for really identifying the benefits and the drawbacks of the scenario that you're looking at jumping into, recognizing there's going to possibly be equal amount of both. And so when you look at the drawbacks, are they things that you are willing to contend with to achieve and enjoy all of the success? Don't have this false expectation that the problems that crop up mean I'm either good at it or bad at it, or that there are problems, therefore there's something wrong with the journey. This is a journey, and you are going to have challenges that you're going to have to overcome all the time. One of the things that Charles does talk about is what is our reward for solving problems, and people say things like happiness, relief, you get rid of problems. And he says about all of those things, no, your reward for solving problems is bigger problems, because you're getting better and better and capable of more. The things that you used to see as problems are just everyday little humps in the road that you get over quite quickly. And so we can be sucked into this false sense of, gosh, there's so many problems around me. Did I make the right decision? But it really does seem to be what you focus on grows. What you focus on is the experience of life. And so really identify the benefits and drawbacks, recognize you're overcoming the drawbacks all the time, but you're focusing on the benefits. And so you are having a happy experience of it.
I love that. I love that. That there's that self-growth part that you just nailed. There's another piece to this that I will throw out, and that is your team in the process. Because even being a master at what you just described, you still don't have maybe the depth of knowledge in certain areas, accounting, legal, all of the things that you're going to need to get you to the finish line, whether it's a startup or an acquisition. And I can't overestimate. How do I say that? I can't overemphasize, how important it is to have a capable and have trust with a team that's going to help you to the finish line. I mean, here in the States, anyways, and I assume it's probably similar to your country, and that's the amount of professionals that are specific to dentistry, I think is a unique thing that, a lot of people may here. I call it the dental tax sometimes. Like if I walked across the street and started working with an accounting firm, good accounting firm, but just a general accounting firm, versus I'm sure it would be fine, but going to a dental specific accounting firm that only does dental, you would think you're going to get a knowledge that's above the general accounting knowledge, right? I mean, that's just basics. It's why we refer to orthos to do ortho and pedo to do pedo and so on and so forth. We already understand the specialization, but having teams that specialize in these categories, like consulting, like all of the professional things, is to me priceless. You can make mistakes and you can get into trouble getting into ownership. And I think a team can help you navigate that. It's a very safe risk. You think of insurance, we pay all this money to insurance companies and whatever. Very rarely is there a payout. To me, having professionals that understand this, that specialize in dental, is the cheapest risk of buying something, $1 million practice, whatever it is, for thousands of dollars to have people that do this on an everyday basis. You can't, that's a huge value in my opinion.
That's right. How do we make effective decisions? And how effective our decisions are around anything in life and business is the experience, knowledge and wisdom that we bring to the table with that. So develop, in essence, kind of your board of advisors, leverage off everyone's brilliance in their niche areas where they are brilliant. You will make better decisions.
You will. The leaders of our countries have advisors as long as the tables can be made, and there's a reason for it. And I'd rather that. The minute you don't surround yourself by people, you're at risk for not thinking of things differently and what have you. So ownership's difficult. Get yourself the right team. If you don't trust someone, then find somebody else. Trust is huge. Don't hire people and not listen to them. That's silly.
Yeah.
They hire me. The people hire me all the time and don't listen. And then a year later or two, they come back and say, you were right. And I'm like, I couldn't have said it louder. You just, why did you pay me? I don't get it, So, but it's, we've talked about all of the risks and things to consider and how to prep. That all being said, ownership's the way to go if that's what you're trying to do. I mean, don't get me wrong, being an associate that for life, that's not a bad thing either for certain people, no doubt. You don't have to be an owner. It doesn't mean you're a failure at all. You might be the smartest one in the room. I don't know, because ownership is very challenging. But for those that have the grit and want to take their level to another level, I suppose, and want to see the income lifts that it provides, the wealth that it provides. I don't think there's anything better than getting into ownership. I can't say enough about how ownership can really change your life. Not overnight, but it can absolutely change your life over time.
Yeah, because you've got that element of control over everything that you do. If you're not enjoying the vision, the direction, if the values are no longer resonating, if the patient experience is depleting to a lower level than what you're satisfied with, if team members are being given an environment that is also degrading in any way, that you know that there's a potential for something better, if the location of the practice isn't suiting you, the structure of the practice isn't suiting you, if your work-life balance is going out of whack, all of the things, if you've got control over every element of those to tweak them 1% to be better, then your life experience will be better, your satisfaction will be better, and you've only got that level of control when you are the owner.
Yeah, 100%. It's more control, and I would always bet on myself. We make investments with our financial advisors. We put money in certain things that we think smart. But to me, the best investment you can ever make is in yourself, hands down. And as long as you're chasing the why, I'm back to that, the right why, it can't just be about money. If it's about money, I will tell you, if it's about money, you may consider associate position for life if that's your why. And that's okay, actually. I know a lot of people that made tons of money as an associate working for big groups. And I don't think they're going to make that much as owners because they're after money. But the folks that just are on fire about changing a community's health and making an impact in people's lives and being that local dentist that everybody loves and is walking in the parade and whatever, right? Uh, those practices, those doctors will just be wildly successful. And then you need that team to help you capture that money for yourself. But the top line really does. I say the top line, the revenues, the sales, that comes easy when your why is in the right place.
Yeah,
The
it's like
question,
it's like the income is the byproduct. The money is the byproduct of what you're doing.
100%. Those people that have strong whys, they oftentimes don't pay attention to the bottom line. They just love what they're doing so much and all the revenues coming in, but they're not paying attention to the bottom. And then the people that are only focused on the bottom can't figure out how to bring it in on the top. Isn't that true?
Yeah, so true.
So just, yeah, again, but know your why, understand why you're getting into it, and follow your dream. And again, invest in yourself. Yeah.
Beautiful. I love it. So what does a potential practice owner experience when they come to Next Level Consultants? What do you do for them? What's their experience with you?
Yeah. So getting into ownership is a tough decision, whether it's startup or acquisition. So the first thing we do is sort that out. Sometimes the journey begins looking for practices to purchase, and then flips over to startup because we couldn't find anything. Sometimes we start down the startup path and we flip over and we find a practice on accident. So it doesn't really matter which path you're going down or you're thinking. The first thing is me understanding the client, understanding their financial background and position. Good old Siri, my watch is talking to me right now.
Your microphone's fantastic.
Apparently Siri disagrees with the what I was saying. But really it's just sorting out their life, who's behind them, who's supporting them, what kids do they have, what's their work-life balance, how much money do they make, blah, 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 blah. Get to know the person. And then it's, okay, now what do you want to do? How do you want to get into ownership? And we really sort out, like, what are those first steps? And it really is a coaching program of hand holding. If someone gets off the path, it's getting them back on the right path. And so that's really the first steps. From there, it's I wouldn't say checklist. You can't write a book and explain what you're going to deal with when you're dealing with a contractor that's missing deadlines and there's asbestos in the wall. There's no checklist for that. So working with an equipment rep that's trying to oversell you something that you don't need right out of the gate. An acquisition, figuring out if someone's collecting or not collecting, or if there should be an insurance involved versus not. So there's just so many variables. Books are impossible to write, but really it's just walking a client through every single step the right way, back to the title of the program, walking through each step and thinking about each step methodically with intentionality. And then in the end, you've got the keys and you're the owner. And if you wish to maintain services, we've got a team to catch you as a brand new owner with all of the stresses and concerns. So that's essentially the services that we provide. And yeah.
And do you provide those services just to United States clients, or do you go broader afield to places like Australia?
Yeah. I can say we're international because we've had some Canadian work, but that's as far as we've gone. It would have to be the right situation. I assume most of your listeners are probably from Australia, but ironically, I've looked at statistics on my podcast, and it's all over the place in the world. So it's kind of nutty to see that. So I would say we'd probably be staying in the United States unless there was a circumstance, and we could refer to you, Julie, if someone from Australia knocked on my door. Maybe we could do a co-op, but that would probably be it. Yeah.
And so for your US potential new clients, what should be their next best step in working with you?
Yeah, I just think consult. We're not the stuffy consultants. We're very we're large, but we're very accessible. It's set up a call with me right off my website. I think
Great.
there's a Calendly link that anybody can access. I am a couple weeks out, of course, but nonetheless, just get on the phone with me and let's talk about your situation and what you're battling with. Essentially, it's a free coaching call. I mean, I don't hold anything back. It's you get what you get on the phone, and if you decide to move forward, great. If you don't, that's okay too.
Fantastic. And the website to get all that contact information is nxlevelconsultants.com.
Correct. But as podcasts live and breathe every single day, all year round for years to come, we are going through a rebrand soon. So if you're looking for us, just Google my name. My name would, but we are going to have to go through a rebrand, unfortunately.
No worries. So Michael Dinsio, Dinsio. That's
you
the one. And
it.
Jump onto the Dental Uncensored podcast and subscribe to that too, and just get this constant flow of tremendous wisdom like you've experienced during this episode. I want to thank you so much for this discussion. I've thoroughly enjoyed myself.
It was great, Julie. I enjoy your time. It's always fun talking to another consultant because it's almost like we're talking to ourselves, you know. It's like maybe we're the only ones enjoying this conversation, but nonetheless, it was really fun. So thank you. Yeah, it was great.
Thank you. Fingers crossed the listeners found value in it also. And if you are listening to it, we've got a video version of it on YouTube where there's a link in the show notes for that as well. Well, I wish you the very best. I think it's mid-afternoon for you now. Have a beautiful afternoon and evening, and I'll have a lovely day moving forward now that my internet's back up and running and my stress levels go down. So thank you.
There you go. And enjoy the rest of your summer. We'll talk soon, Julie. Thank you.
If you enjoyed today's podcast, then you should come along and join the club. The club is a whole library of lunch and learns with new lunch and learns being produced all the time that help your dental team gain greater success in your systems, in your team behaviours, in your patient management, in your patient engagement, in their treatment plans. They are usually around half an hour in length, and so team members can sit down, be paid for their lunch break, eat lunch while they're being inspired and delivered all of these insights and strategies that can be implemented so you all achieve greater levels of success. Also, Amina and I, my buddy from Dental Management Expertise, have a company, Dental Business Mastery, together. And our flagship online 1-year course for dental practice managers and dental practice owners to learn how to very successfully manage your dental practice is available. Head over to dentalbusinessmastery.com.au to find out more information, and has information about any other courses that we've got available. Also, make sure you do jump onto my website, julieparkerpracticesuccess.com.au, and you will see a whole load of free information. There are articles, the blog, downloads, templates, a whole load of things that are designed to help you overcome any specific challenge that you've got going on in your practice at the moment. If you have any suggestions of topics or guests that I can have on the podcast, please let me know. Thanks for listening.